Greetings, fellow readers. This is Rambling Collector, back here with another comic book review for all of you today. And this one is going to be interesting. For this episode, we're going to be going back to the DC Vertigo days with this 4-issue miniseries, Books of Magic by Neil Gaiman. And I won't lie to you guys, I was very intrigued by this 4-issue miniseries, especially with the artwork that really drew me in. But the story was also fascinating in its own right. So, let's get started. So to first give some context for this series, we follow the adventures of a young Timothy Hunter as he is introduced to the world of magic by 4 of the most powerful magicians in the DC universe. And the reason for this is because Timothy Hunter has the potential to be one of the most powerful wizards in the DC universe, with the potential to either save or destroy the DC universe as we know it. Now, the way I look at it, Vertigo itself really deals with the more supernatural and magical side of DC, as well as having its own independent stories separate from the mainstream DC universe. But Books of Magic, in my opinion, one of its greatest strengths, despite having only 4 issues, was the fact of its world building. It builds upon the world of magic in the DC universe, as well as introduces us to the past, present, and future, and how magic has affected all corners of the timeline, and the different ways that it is used, as a matter of fact. Its many different users, its many different practitioners. We see characters such as Merlin, as well as in the future. We see how humanity evolves into this magical and scientific race, only to collapse due to the potency of magic, and how magic itself can be very volatile in the wrong hands. But besides that, one of the greatest strengths I feel for Books of Magic, the series itself, was the fact that it showcases a lot of various lesser-known DC characters, such as John Constantine, Mr. E, Dr. Occult, Zatanna, and Phantom Stranger. Now, Constantine nowadays is a much more popular character, and he does have his own series in DC Vertigo, that being Constantine Hellblazer. But other characters such as Mr. E, Dr. Occult, Zatanna, and Phantom Stranger all got a major spotlight here, with each issue focusing on one of these main 4. For instance, the Phantom Stranger was the one who showed Timothy the past, showing, of course, the downfall of Lucifer, to the falling of Atlantis, all the ways magic has existed from the past to the present. And that leads us to John Constantine, where Constantine shows the dark side of magic in the present day, and how it is still practiced even now in modern day, which is now ruled by technology. And then, of course, you have Dr. Occult, who shows, of course, the more supernatural side of it, the other worlds, such as the fairy courts, and everything of that nature. That is what Dr. Occult shows Timothy in issue 3. And of course, Mr. E, I'm not sure if his name is supposed to be a pun or not, but whatever. Okay, I'm going to say this right now. Mr. E is insane. But for the fact that he can actually travel forward into the future. Mr. E is the one who shows, of course, Timothy, the future. Shows how humanity evolves, and at one point goes through a major world-ending crisis with Timothy at the head, as either a destroyer or a creator. But in the one that Mr. E shows him, it's as a destroyer, a war of magic, the final war of magic. And then it goes further. Humanity evolving, going beyond the stars, exploring, creating such technological wonders, and then rediscovering magic. The sheer scope that is shown here in this 4-issue miniseries is what really blows me away. And I will admit, the story is very, very slow. But it's more of an introductory piece to the world of magic, so the slow pacing can be forgiven. But the artwork is what really brings the story to life, in my opinion. It introduces the sheer scope. And I must say this much. John Bolton, Scott Hampton, Charles Vess, and Paul Johnson, each one of them, who contributed with 1 issue each. I must say, all 4 of them really knocked it out of the park with the artwork to bring this miniseries to life. Which, to give a little showcase here, And when I say these four did a fantastic job with the artwork, well, see for yourself. This is like modern day painting quality that they did. Now, I'm not sure if this was hand drawn by pencil or painted, but regardless, it is beautiful to look at. So many different shades of dark and light, each being highlighted with various different shades of color, really bringing it to life. Especially on the far right, here where you'll see the downfall of Lucifer. And of course, you also see John Constantine, who looks way more realistic here. And even more so with the final battle of the future. Or at least the final magic war of the future. That Mr. E shows right here in the middle. All of it was very well illustrated. And I gotta give major kudos to the artists for their amazing work on this. But with all that being said, let's move on to random thoughts, shall we? Okay, so random thoughts. First of all, I want to say this much. Neil Gaiman is a fantastic story writer. I have actually been diving into his Sandman series, or I guess you could say re-diving into it. I actually did an old video on some of his much smaller paperbacks, but recently I've been collecting more of the recently released collected editions. So I'll be deleting that old video to give more context to the Sandman itself. But other than that, I will say, besides that, I know of Neil Gaiman's other works such as American Gods, Norse mythology, and now, books of magic. But more than that, the four artists that he worked with really brought the story to life that he was trying to tell. And if anything else, I'm actually very excited to dive into more DC Vertigo titles. Vertigo thus far has not disappointed me in regards to its unique storytelling, in ways that it is part of the magical side of the DC universe, and even supernatural side. But more than that, it has its own independent stories there. Vertigo has a lot to offer in that case, and it's going to be fun collecting some of those older comics. But, another thing I want to say here, Timothy, the fact that he was exposed to all of this, and did not go insane, is really a marker to his endurance. And I gotta say this much, I'm actually curious to check out the other Books of Magic series, because I thought that this 4-issue miniseries was it, but no. There is another Books of Magic series that is related to this one, and I'm actually excited to go ahead and check that one out. Okay, my random thoughts are now over, so let's move on to the final score. So, my overall score for the Books of Magic miniseries, I would give it a good solid 8 out of 10. The story pacing was slow, but the artwork was grand. The scope was really good, and do I recommend checking out this miniseries? Absolutely. Especially if you're a fan of Neil Gaiman or if you want to see some unique artwork. More than anything though, I feel like this is a great way to expand on the DC world of magic, in my personal opinion. Or if you're just interested in checking out some DC Vertigo. And once again, you guys, thank you so much for listening to this crazy man's ramblings. I really do appreciate it. And if you're interested to see some of the other comic reviews I've done, feel free to click the link to that playlist here. Or, if you want to see some book reviews I've done, feel free to click the link to that as well. And if you like this video, feel free to leave a like, comment your thoughts on it down below, or if you have any comic suggestions, feel free to let me know that in the comment section down as well. I'm always eager for a challenge. Most importantly, you guys, thank you once again for listening. This is Rambling Collector, signing off for now. Keep reading, fellow readers.